Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well. So I'm here with a book video, which is super exciting. I recently watched the film Gone Girl, which I really loved, and I've talked about it. But before I watched the film, actually last year I had read the book, and it's one of my favorite books. I don't have it to show you, I'm actually lending it out right now, but it's one of my favorite books, and if you don't know, Gone Girl is about Nick and Amy. They're a married couple, and Amy goes missing, and Nick is the main suspect in the case. They think she's been murdered, the police think she's been murdered, and they think that Nick has done it. So the book is kind of told in alternating like diary entries from Nick's perspective and then Amy's, so you really don't know what's happening. It's a very like psychological thriller and lots of like twists along the way. So I really love Gone Girl, and ever since I read that, I wanted to find similar novels that kind of had some similar elements. So that's what the video is today. It's some books that are like Gone Girl or have different elements that are similar to Gone Girl. So I will get into the books now. So if you like the kind of marriage and examination of marriage element or themes in Gone Girl, I have two books specifically about marriage. The first one is The Silent Wife by A.S.A. Harrison. And even on the back of the book, it even says, better than Gillian Flynn's Gone Girl. So this is a very comparable book that has been compared to Gone Girl. I will read the back because it gives a really good kind of summary of what this book is about. So it says, Jody and Todd are at a bad place in their marriage. Much is at stake, including the affluent life they lead in their beautiful waterfront condo in Chicago, as she, the killer, and he, the victim, rush haplessly toward the main event. He is a committed cheater. She lives and breathes the denial. He exists in dual worlds. She likes to settle scores. He decides to play for keeps. She has nothing left to lose. Told in alternating voices, The Silent Life is about a marriage in the throes of dissolution, a couple headed for catastrophe, concessions that can't be made, and promises that won't be kept. So just from reading the back, you can see that what's going to happen, that the husband's going to be the victim and the wife is going to be the killer. But it's finding out what happens and how it gets to that point that is interesting about this book. There's definitely some twists and turns in this book, but it's much more about like the psychology and like their relationship and how it fell apart versus a very like twisty novel like Gillian Flynn's Gone Girl, but it definitely has similar elements. We kind of have this cheating husband and then a woman who feels like she has no choice. So the chapters are told, there's him and her chapters, so every other chapter. So you get both perspectives, which is very interesting. And yes, this one is really good. So another one about marriage and examination of a marriage is You Should Have Known by Hanff Korelitz. So this one is, the main character is Grace, and she's a marriage therapist, and she's writing a book, and her book's about to come out entitled You Should Have Known. So being a marriage therapist, she's seen a lot of relationships break apart, a lot of divorces and people having relationship problems, and she feels in all the cases that the women are kind of to blame and that they should have known from the beginning that this relationship or this man that they've married wasn't the right one for them, that they should have looked into the stuff they've already seen from the beginning or their initial instincts to prevent, being in these bad relationships. So she's pretty much putting the blame on the women. And she thinks her own marriage is perfect and she's this expert and she knows everything. But slowly her own marriage starts to fall apart. So there's a killing, there's a murder, her husband is missing, and everything she thinks she knows about her husband and her life and her seemingly perfect life seems to just fall apart in front of her. So this book is told in third person, but you only see Grace in the novel. You don't ever have scenes with her husband, Jonathan. So he's missing, and you only have scenes with him when it's like memories or flashbacks that Grace is having. So he's never actually in the novel. So it makes it very interesting. He's like a distant husband. It's really interesting that one of the main characters really isn't shown. If this was like a movie, like you would never actually see him except through like flashbacks in the story. So that was very interesting, but this is one that definitely examines marriage. So if you like the kind of marriage theme of Gone Girl, this is definitely one that is similar in that way. So if you like the kind of mystery and you want to know what happened, type of element of Gone Girl, one I can recommend is Visitation Street by Ivy Pochoda. So this one's set in the Red Hook neighborhood in Brooklyn. So the book starts out with two 15-year-old girls, June and Val, going rafting at night on the East River. So Val ends up washed up ashore and unconscious and then is taken to the hospital, but June has disappeared. So there's now an investigation for June, like what has happened to her. It's thought that she's been murdered or kidnapped, and the main suspect is Cree. I think he's an 18-year-old, like black boy, or man, I guess. And then Val and June are two like 15-year-old white girls. So it definitely talks about kind of the like stereotypes and like the racial divide in this town. There's five, I think 4 main characters. So Cree, it's showing what his thoughts are. Val, then there's Jonathan, he's the music teacher. He's the one that actually finds Val. He's like a music teacher, but he lives above a bar, so he's kind of a sort of suspicious and, character that's not really living to his potential. He's like a Juilliard dropout, so he thought his life was going to be so much different. And then Fatty, he's the Lebanese Bottega owner. So he, working at Bottega, gets a lot, knows a lot of the people that live in this town. He's trying to piece together what happened. So it's really interesting portrayal of this neighborhood. That's really the most interesting part of this book, is just seeing the different people living in this neighborhood and how they interact with each other and the issues that come up. But it also has the mystery element, and you want to know what has happened to June. So this one is definitely also very good. And then, of course, if you love Gillian Flynn, Gone Girl, an obvious choice would be to go out and read her other books. So her debut novel was Sharp Objects, and then she also wrote Dark Places. So I looked up for these books, and I think Sharp Objects is being made into a TV movie. I'm not really sure like what station or any more information about that. And then Dark Places is actually being made into a film with Charlize Theron, and there's a lot of other like big names attached to this movie. I'm not sure when this is going to come out, but it's really interesting that 3 of Gillian Flynn's 3 novels are all going to be made into films potentially. So Sharp Objects. So in all of Gillian Flynn's novels, she has a female character, a female lead character that is damaged in some way, an imperfect female character. So in this book, the main character is Camille Preaker, and she is a journalist assigned to investigate the murder of 2 teenage girls from her hometown. So she's currently living in Chicago, and she has to go to her hometown in Missouri to investigate these murders. So, of course, going back to her hometown, she has to live, go and stay with her mother, who she's never had a good relationship with. She also has a younger half-sister. So she kind of has to deal with this family relationship that's not the greatest, and also investigate these murders. In true Gillian Flynn fashion, this has like twists and turns, and it's one that you kind of want to keep reading to see what's happening and what is causing these murders. So this is definitely a good one. And then also Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. So the main character in this book is Libby Day, and when she was 7 years old, her 2 older sisters and her mother were murdered, and the convicted killer was her brother. So now it's 25 years later. Of course, with all of this that's happened in her life, Libby's life has kind of been, a mess. She's never really worked, so when her mother and sisters were murdered, there was a fund set up and people donated money towards Libby. So she's kind of lived off her money her whole life. She's never really worked. And now the funds are all kind of drying up and she's like, what am I going to do? So she gets contacted by this kill club. And what this kill club does is investigate different murders where they think the conviction was wrong. So in the case of her family's murders, they don't think that her brother was actually the killer. So they contact Libby because they want to investigate this murder, and Libby sees this as a way for her to potentially make money. She feels like she can give them information, and she can, give them different artifacts so that they can pay her for. So she gets involved with this kill club, but that makes her start to think, and she listens to some of their theories, and she starts to think, did my brother really kill my family? So very interesting. Also, a novel that has a female protagonist that's very broken and imperfect and very twisty as well. So those are the books that I have found to be the most sort of similar in either theme or storytelling to Gillian Flynn's Gone Girl. So I would love to know if you've read any of these novels and your thoughts on them, or if you've read any novels that you found to be similar to Gone Girl, or just your thoughts on Gone Girl in general. And thanks for watching. Bye.